Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aubrey and I'm so happy to have you all here with me today. So we are actually going to go through all of the books that I've read recently. I'm not going to talk about any of the books that I have read in July because I do want to start doing these videos quarterly, so like every 3 months during the year. But we are going to go through just all of the books that I've read before July, essentially. So recently up until June. And we're going to go through them in the order that I finished them. And I'm not going to talk about the plot of any of these books in any sort of detail in this particular video. I'm just going to talk about my thoughts on it, what I liked about it or didn't like about it. And then if you are interested in finding out more about the plot, you can go and look it up if you would like. So as I said, we're going to start with the one that I finished the earliest. So that would be book 1 of The House Witch by Delum Hawk. So I really liked the vibes of this book, and I really expected to absolutely love it because it deals a lot with homemaking and food and comfort from food. And our main character is a house witch, so he is like able to use his magic in ways that involve making people feel safe in the home and creating a home. And he actually works as a chef, and it just like, it's so cozy and sweet. And I did like the characters. However, what didn't really click with me with this book was kind of the way that the characters interact with each other sometimes, and the things they say feels a little forced. It doesn't necessarily always feel natural. And that did kind of bother me a little, but I really did like the coziness of this book. And so I am going to continue with this series, but I don't know, I just felt like, and I think the romance in here is cute, I think the found family is cute, although some of the ways that the characters develop, even like Hannah, I think her name is Hannah, one of the servants who ends up working with Finn, I feel like her development happens a little too quickly to be believable in some ways, because she starts out very, very timid and then, you know, learns to stand up for herself and for others, but it happens like pretty suddenly. And I don't know, I just felt like that didn't really seem believable to me. And just some of the ways that they interact with each other just felt forced, like it was put in there because the author wanted it to be there, rather than it feeling like the way that those characters would speak or interact organically, if that makes sense. So while it wasn't as great for me personally as I hoped, I am going to continue the series, and I do hope that it gets better, because this is the first book. I don't know if this author has written anything before this or not. So, you know, writers do develop their skills as they go, and so I am hoping that the series will continue to get better as we go. And I do care enough about the characters and the plot to continue with it and see where it's going to go from here. And then the next few books that I read are all from the same series. So I finished the series The Girl from the Other Side, or oh gosh, Cyril Rune? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But I read volumes 5 through 12. So I had read the first 4 volumes, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. And then I finished it up this year. So the first 11 volumes are the main story, and then volume 12 is like side stories. So this series is like dark fairy tale vibes. And I really liked Teacher, one of the 2 main characters. I really liked Teacher. I thought that his story was really fun to explore. And Shiva, the little girl, I also love. Shiva is adorable. And I really liked their interactions with one another. I really liked the commentary in here on mass hysteria and propaganda against like another group, the way that the unknown scares people and the way that people tend to lash out when they are afraid. Instead of trying to come up with like a solution or figure out what's going on or just keep themselves safe, it becomes like not just, oh, we want to stay separated from these creatures that can hurt us, but like we want to actually attack them, we hate them, you know, and sacrificing people because of that fear, because you fear that they've been contaminated, things like that. So this does get very dark, this series. But I really actually kind of liked that, because I thought that it was pointing out things that we've seen in real life history, ways that humans do tend to unfortunately react to scary things and negative events that are going on. So I quite liked that in here. What I didn't necessarily like was the twist with Shiva. I did not call it. I did not figure that out until it was happening, and I was like, oh, I kind of wish that hadn't been the route that the story had taken. I mean, I see where the author is going, and I did like the sort of commentary on like forgiveness and coming together and loving someone based on what you know of them rather than what they've done in the past, right? Like loving them based on who they are when you know them, if that makes sense. But I kind of wish that it had, I don't know, it was just like the last, volume or two where that particular thing comes into play. I was like, I don't know. I didn't love that, but I did love the story as a whole, and the side stories were great. So basically this volume is just full of Shiva and Teacher's lives together throughout the series. And it was just really cute. Very, very cute. Because, you know, like watching them interact, and Teacher loving this little girl as if she's his child, and her loving him even though so many other people are terrified of him and would kill him if they had the chance. And it's just adorable. And just like the side stories are just these little bits of like just their lives without the drama, right? Like baking a pie or doing laundry or stargazing, things like that. And it was very, very cute. So I did love their relationship and everything, and I really did love the series as a whole. It was just that bit that bothered me. Also, the ending is quite ambiguous as to what exactly is happening. If it's really happening or not, I don't know. I choose to believe that it is. But yeah, so it's a very interesting series. As I said, it does get really, really dark. So if you like dark fairy tales, and kind of things to not be exactly as they seem in your stories, where, you know, things appear to be one way and then you find out that they're actually something different, I would recommend this. If you don't like that, then don't read the series. But it is a manga series. I don't know if I mentioned that. But I did overall enjoy it, and I am glad that I finished it. And again, I love Shiva and Teacher, so the side stories volume was adorable, and I definitely enjoyed that one. And I liked having it to read after the ending, which, as I said, was kind of upsetting in some ways for me personally, but okay, then I have another series to talk about. So I finished, oh, they're heavy, Heaven Official's Blessing, or Tianguan Sifu by Mo Xiang Tongshu this year. So I had read the first 2 volumes quite a while ago, because originally I saw the Donghua, which is like the Chinese anime for it, season 1 of that, and I loved it. And then I found out there were books, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get those and read them. I do still think the anime is my favorite out of the 2, like the Donghua is my favorite, but I do really love the books. As you can probably tell, I have paraphernalia merch from the series up here. And if you've seen my past book hauls, then you've seen some like special editions and comics and all of that. But I did, as I said, see the Donghua first, and so I already knew what I was getting into when I got into the series as far as the characters go and their dynamic and kind of the premise of what was going on. And so I had read the first 2 volumes, and then this year I read volumes 3 through 8, so I was able to finish it, and I love it so much. So much. Shilian is just one of the most precious characters I've ever seen. And I mean, he goes through a lot. So these books do jump from like the present timeline back to the past at several points in the series. And so you get to see the events that lead Shilian and Hua Chong and everyone else up to where they are now. And so you get to see all of the stuff, like the awful, horrific things that Shilian has gone through. And yet he goes through a period where he is not doing well mentally and is just, you know, basically given up, is like, well, if you want me to become a monster, I will become a monster. But then, you know, we see him overcoming all these things and just being this genuinely good-hearted person, and he's so sweet and adorable. And also I just love him so much. And it's like he's trying to talk to the other gods and stuff in his communication ray, which is like this mental communication that they have, and in like the public one, and he just sends things that make him happy, and none of them ever respond because he's basically like a pariah, and it just makes me sad. And he's just so sweet. And then we have Hua Chong, who is so devoted to him and just wants to protect him and make him happy. And I love it. I love their devotedness to each other. And I do kind of wish that we got to see more. Okay, so when the series ends, it's about halfway through volume or book 8. And then you have like extra stories that take place after the end of the series. And I wish there was more. I want to see their relationship continuing to grow. I want to see them working on their trauma with each other and bonding with their friends, you know, Shilian, repairing these relationships that have been hurt in the past. And Shi Qingxuan, if you've read this series, you know what I'm talking about. I want to see some resolution to that. But I still, even without that, even though I wish that there was more to this, just continuing on beyond where it stopped, I love it so much. And I feel like MXTX does a good job of making even the villain characters, like, even if you don't like them, you kind of understand where they come from. Like, you understand, there's a lot in here about like mental health and the lack thereof, mental instability. You know, it deals with depression, it deals with self-hatred, it deals with the pressures that society puts on certain people and how they are trying to deal with that, especially when they fail at something and then realize that the people, not everyone, but some of the people who claim to love them, it's conditional based on their success and what these people see of as their worth, right? And it's just so good. And then the love story is just beautiful and wonderful. This is my favorite Danmei that I've read so far, and I'm not an expert on Danmei. I just want to say that. I've only read MXTX's 3 series, and then 1 volume of Guardian, and 1 volume of The Husky and His White Cat Shizen, so I'm not an expert. But out of the 3 of MXTX's series, this is my favorite of the book series. It's just so good. And Shilian is just one of my favorite characters ever now. I will say that the writing in these books is not at all flowery or lyrical or purple prose, whatever you want to call it. It is not. It is exactly the opposite of that, in fact. And I don't know if that has to do with the translation or if that's just the way that it's written, because this is written like the writing style is pretty much the same throughout her 3 series, as far as not the characters' like attitudes and their personalities, but just the sentence structure and the way that she writes. So if you are a fan of more lyrical writing, then this probably, or it may bother you, the writing style in this series. But if that's not going to affect you, I do really recommend it. I will say, like I said, that it deals with a lot of death and depression and things like that, mixed in with all of the humor and the romance and the little mysteries that they get to go try to solve. And some of the jokes in here are just kind of embarrassing for me, I think. And it has a lot of miscommunication, okay, between our two main characters. And I usually hate that, and it does bother me because I'm like, come on, just talk to each other. But then at the same time, I understand why there's so much miscommunication, because there's so much insecurity on both sides, and they are so afraid to say something to the other person because they both think that they're not good enough. So I get it, I get that. And so it didn't bother me as much as it bothers me in some other stories, but I just love it so much. And I do think that even though the writing style is not super descriptive, super lyrical, super flowery, or whatever you want to call it, I just think that the way that she creates her characters, like, I believe the way that they act, right? Like the way that they interact with each other, the things that they do, it's very believable to me. You really like kind of understand where they are in their headspace. And I just love it. And the romance is just so sweet. It's just so sweet. Even when the romance is not happening and they're just dancing around each other, you're just rooting for them, right? So I love it. It's a wonderful series, and I'm so glad that I got to finish it. And then season 2 of the Dogpaw has come out recently, and now we're just waiting on season 3. So I get to continue to enjoy the story. And then I read a graphic novel. So I read the first book in the series, The Tea Dragon Society, when I was in my master's program, and I was just having a really, really hard week. And one of the books that we had been assigned just hit me really hard, mentally and emotionally. It was talking about cancer and stuff, and I just couldn't deal with it right then. So I took a break, and I was like, I need to read something sweet and unproblematic and cozy and happy. So I read The Tea Dragon Society, and I loved it. So this year, I read The Tea Dragon Festival by Kay O'Neill. This is the second book in that series. There is a third one, which I don't own yet because these are quite expensive for how small they are. I mean, they are full color and they are hardcover, so I understand the price tag, but it is kind of expensive to pay for such a short read. So, but I am planning on getting it hopefully within the next year and reading it. But the Tea Dragon Festival takes place before the Tea Dragon Society. And just like the Tea Dragon Society, it is just as sweet and delightful as the first one. We do have some returning characters. So Heskel and Eric, or Hesekiel, not Heskel. So here are our 4 main characters. So Hesekiel and Eric are in here when they are younger and still traveling as adventurers before they have settled down. And then we have Hesekiel's siblings, child, Ren. I can't remember if it's his sister or brother's kid, but this is Ren. And then we have Aiden, who is a dragon, and not a tea dragon, a real dragon, who is tasked with protecting their village. And so it's just so sweet. The art in here is just looking at it makes you happy because it is just so soft and adorable. The characters are all cute, all precious. Literally, there is no one in here who is a bad person or problematic or angry. They're just all nice and kind, and this village is just so cozy and like just kind of ensconced in these woods in the mountains that's kind of separated from, you know, other societies and other people. And so it's just so sweet and so cute. And I'm so glad that I read this. And the tea dragons are, as always, absolutely precious. And it's just like Ren and Aiden figuring out themselves and what they want to do, and found family, and Aiden dealing with his anxiety of not being a good protector. And that's basically what this book is. And it's just so sweet. It's just found family at its core, and I love it. So if you're looking for a sweet read and you like graphic novels, I highly recommend this series. I I mean, I really feel like this would make anybody happy. I can't see anyone reading this and not liking it. Then I read the 2 most recent volumes of The Heroic Legend of Arslan, so volumes 13 and 14 by Hiromu Arakawa. This is my favorite manga series of all time. I love it so much. If you've been around for a bit on the channel, you've probably heard me talk about it before. And it just continues to delight. I just love this series as much now as I did at the beginning. And I feel like we're really getting into the more intense, not that it hasn't been intense up until now, because the series, I will say, is very violent. If you don't like violence, I would not recommend reading this, simply because not only is it violent, but it's in manga form. So seeing the violence in pictures is quite different from just reading a book where violence happens. Both can still be upsetting, but I feel like seeing it just is more visceral. So do be aware that this is very violent, and it's taking place in a time period where war is fought with swords and bow and arrows and cavalries. So if animal death bothers you, also be aware, because unfortunately horses don't always make it out of war. But I love this series so much. I love our main character, Prince Arslan. He is precious and adorable, and just struggling so much with pushing back against his father's expectations of what a ruler is, to define what he thinks a ruler should be. And he's just such a genuinely good person. And it's just, if you love reading stories where you have someone get a group, found family, that whole vibe, and this group supports them wholeheartedly, then you're gonna love this, because that is literally what is going on here. And so we've got different factions at this point. We have, I'm not gonna name them because spoilers, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 different factions that are fighting over pars at this point. And then we have this supernatural element that is now coming into play, which scares the ever-living heck out of me, I'm gonna be honest. I have no idea what's gonna happen with that. And again, I'm trying to be as vague as possible because I really don't want to spoil anything for those of you who are not caught up or who haven't started the series. But I will say that these 2 volumes don't focus on our main cast as much. We kind of focus on some side characters a lot more in here, and some of the other groups and what's going on with them. But I do think we're getting back to our little group, Arslan and his family, the little gang. So I'm really excited for volumes 19 and 20, which are coming out later this year. But I just love it so much. I will say, this series definitely has overpowered characters. So if you're looking for realistic battle scenes, you're gonna get that in the violence itself. But you're also going to see characters that are so good and strong and such proficient fighters that they are able to basically just swing their sword and take out 10 people at once, kind of thing. So be aware that this is not meant to be entirely realistic, okay? Like Darian, and I love Darian, and I will say, I don't mind an overpowered character. I really don't. I love Darian, and I love the reactions that he gets when people realize that they are facing him and who he is, or when they see him fight and it terrifies them. I'm like, I love it. It just makes me happy. I love competence, and I love Darian so much. He's my second favorite character in the series behind Arslan. But this series, you see so much about, beyond the found family and the war and the fighting, you also see, like I said, Arslan just dealing with what it means to be a ruler and still be kind, and how rulers don't have to rule through fear and through power, but they can rule through love and kindness and mercy and being a good person. And I also love that he is willing to accept advice from others because he knows that he's still a child and he doesn't know everything. So, he his people are not just there to protect him, they're there to help him. And I love it. I just eat that stuff up. And just how protective they are of him. I love it so much. But, you know, we also have other characters like this character, who are struggling with also what they've been told and what they know to be right. Specifically in her case, she is part of the invading force, and what the troops are being told is that they are trying to invade in order to spread their religion, and so they're doing a good thing. But really, when you get into the perspectives of the people in power, that is not what it is at all. It is for the priest, but he's insane. He's not actually following the religion so much as he's following just like his own ambitions and interpreting it through religion. He's just a crazy person and uses his religion as an excuse to be crazy. That's him. And I hate him so much. But like the king of this force and his younger brother, the Duke, you really see that they are not actually, especially the Duke and his sort of generals and stuff, that they are not, their motivations are not good. Their motivations are solely based on power and what they can take for themselves. And also some of them, when you see some of these soldiers, they are also happy to use their religion or their country's religion. It's not their religion because they're not following it, but they're happy to use their country's religion as an excuse to do terrible things. And I really think it's interesting because I myself am a Christian, and unfortunately you see religions in real life being used as like reasoning behind atrocious things. And those people are not following the religion, they're just using it as a way to try to get away with what they want to do. But you have people like this character who genuinely believe that they're trying to do something good, but then begin to see under the curtain and realize that actually, no, when I think about it, you're not doing what my religion says you should be doing. This is not how you should go about this. You must have other motivations. And so I just think that that is really interesting to see put into the story. Because it would be so easy just to make that religion itself be a breeder of zealots, but it's not, because the people who genuinely believe in it, they're just being strung along by the people in power who are giving them misinformation. And I just think that it's really interesting to see things from her perspective. But yeah, I just love it. I love it so much. And Arslan, again, is just precious. But I love the series so much. It is my favorite manga series. And I did wait until I had both of these to read them together, because I've said this in past videos, but reading one volume of manga can just be kind of unsatisfying sometimes, unless it's a one shot and the story ends, because it's like, you want more, you know, you want to continue going, and there's such quick reads because they are mostly in picture format. And I do take longer to read manga than some people I know, because I love art, and I am a very detail oriented person, so I really am like looking at the pictures and trying to see all the expressions and all the details and the details on their clothes and the architecture, and I'm sure lots of people don't do that. But so it does take me longer to read manga than it does other people that I know, but that's okay. I enjoy it very much. And it has a desert setting, which I love. I love desert settings. I don't know why. Something about the architecture and the like styles and things that you tend to see in those settings, I just think is beautiful. So yeah, everything about this series is just made for me. I love it so much. Alright guys, so it is like really late and I'm only editing this video now because I had a horrible migraine earlier. But I'm actually going to split this video into 2 parts because it did get quite long, because apparently I ramble a lot. So we will have part 1 this week, and that's where we're going to stop it, and then part 2 we'll just pick up where we left off next week. Also, I forgot to mention in my outro, if you want to leave an emoji for this video, let's do, let's do a kitty cat emoji. So if you'd like to leave an emoji, you can leave a kitty in the comments below. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that maybe you found some recommendations, some things that you would like to try or are interested in. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments if you've read any of these, if you liked them, if you didn't like them. Just please keep it spoiler free because we do want to be respectful of anyone who hasn't read them yet. Or if there are any books that you've read recently that you want to recommend to me, I would love to hear it. Even though my TBR is never ending, I always love getting recommendations for new books. So I'd love to see if you have any. But again, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're having a wonderful week wherever you are. For those of you who celebrate the 4th, I hope that you had a lovely 4th of July. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!